Hello friends, welcome to the HFY Ode, where we bring you new science fiction stories, a new world, a new adventure. And yes, there is no robotic or AI voices here, only real human voices with real human touch. So let's start this journey, and please subscribe my channel if you like the stories and press the bell icon for the latest updates. Let's have a story. Okay.
They said humans didn't belong in the Galactic Defense Corps. Too emotional, too fragile, too unpredictable. She let them think that, right up until the Korthax swarm crossed the border and the entire sector learned what unpredictable really meant. The transport bay smelled like ozone, and something else Sergeant Kira Chen couldn't quite name. Alien sweat, maybe. Or whatever passed for sweat when you had chitin instead of skin. She stood in formation with 200 other recruits, boots planted on deck plating that thrummed with the ship's engines. Around her, the other species towered, literally. The shortest Valorian in the line had 6 inches on her, and the chromath to her left blocked out half the overhead lighting. "Fresh meat," someone rumbled in Galactic Standard. "Look at the small ones." Kira didn't look. She'd learned that in basic training back on Earth. Eye contact was permission. Permission meant engagement. Engagement meant having to explain, yet again, why humans even bothered showing up to a war that had been raging for 3 centuries before her species figured out faster than light travel. The deck officer called them to attention. He was Vax, reptilian, 7 feet of scaled muscle and cold competence. His eyes, slitted and yellow, swept across the formation without pausing on individual faces. "Welcome to Forward Operating Base Keswick," he said. "You are the latest batch of sentients stupid enough to volunteer for frontline duty against the Korthax swarm. Some of you will survive your first deployment. Most will not." Kira kept her eyes forward. The Vax officer's tail swished behind him, a metronome of irritation. "You will be assigned to platoons based on species compatibility and tactical assessment. Humans..." He paused. Just barely. Long enough for Kira to feel the shift in the room. "You will report to Barracks 7. The Human Integration Unit is understaffed." Again. Laughter rippled through the formation. Not cruel exactly, just dismissive. The kind of noise you made when someone mentioned the weather or lunch rations. 3 other humans stood in the formation. Kira spotted them immediately. Her own kind always stood out in a crowd of aliens, not because they were remarkable, but because they looked so damn ordinary. Brown hair, average height, standard issue combat fatigues that never quite fit right. The Vax dismissed them, and the formation dissolved into controlled chaos. Species clustered together. Sol moving toward their assigned barracks with the efficiency of soldiers who'd done this dance before. Kira grabbed her pack and headed for Barracks 7. One of the other humans fell into step beside her. Male, older, with the kind of weathered face that came from too many deployments and not enough sleep. "Chen, right?" he said. "I'm Morales, 3rd tour." "First?" Kira said. "Yeah, I figured." He shifted his pack. "Word of advice, don't volunteer for anything. They'll take it as enthusiasm, and enthusiasm gets you killed out here." "Noted." They walked in silence through corridors that felt too large for human scale. Everything in the GDC was built for the average, and the average sentient species stood between 6 and 8 feet tall, with proportional mass and strength. Humans were statistical outliers. Bottom 10% in size. A bottom 5% in natural armor. Dead last in regenerative capability, but they kept showing up. Barracks 7 was smaller than the others, tucked into a corner of the station like an afterthought. Kira pushed through the door and found herself in a space that held maybe 40 bunks, half of them empty. "Home sweet home," Morales said. "Grab whichever rack isn't claimed. We're light on personnel, so you'll have options." Kira chose a bunk near the far wall. Not corner. Corners were claustrophobic. Not center. Center meant traffic. Far wall meant she could see the whole room and keep her back to something solid. Old habits. The kind you picked up growing up in the Detroit sprawl. She stowed her gear and sat on the thin mattress. across the barracks. Then other humans moved through their routines with the mechanical efficiency of people who'd stopped caring about comfort a long time ago. Morales dropped onto the bunk next to hers. You know why the human unit is always understaffed? High casualty rate? That's part of it. He leaned back, hands behind his head. But mostly it's because nobody wants to serve with us. Command tries to integrate humans into mixed species platoons, and it works for about 3 days. Then someone gets us all killed because they assumed we could regenerate like a Chromath, or outrun a Corthax drone like a Valorian. So they stick us together. Yep, the expendable with the expendable. He closed his eyes. Get some sleep. Briefing's at 0600, and you'll want to be sharp. First impressions matter, even if nobody's paying attention. The briefing room was standing room only. Kira arrived early and found a spot against the back wall. Other species filed in, filling the space with the particular tension of soldiers waiting for bad news. She recognized some from the transport. Valorians with their sleek predatory builds, Chromath who had to duck through doorways, Vox officers who moved through the crowd like sharks. The human contingent clustered together. Kira counted 23, including herself. 23 humans in a room of 300 soldiers. The lights dimmed. A hollow display flickered to life at the front of the room, showing a star map with sectors marked in red. Commander Thex entered. He was Valorian, tall, elegant, with the kind of voice that carried authority without volume. Attention! The room snapped to silence. Intelligence has confirmed Corthax swarm activity in Sector 9, Thex said. The star map zoomed in, highlighting a cluster of systems near the border. 3 colony worlds, total population, 4 million sentients. The swarm hit the first world 6 hours ago. We lost contact 4 hours ago. The room absorbed this. 6 hours from first contact to total silence. That was the Corthax way, fast, brutal, thorough. The fleet is mobilizing for evacuation and counterattack. Thex continued. We deploy in 12 hours. Each platoon will be assigned to specific objectives: evacuation transport security, forward reconnaissance, defensive perimeter establishment. He paused. His eyes swept the room. This will not be a clean operation. The Corthax do not take prisoners. They do not negotiate. They consume. Your job is to buy time for the civilians to escape and to gather intel on swarm composition and tactics. Casualties are expected to be high. Kira's fingers curled into fists. High casualties. Standard phrasing for, most of you are going to die. Platoon assignments are posted outside. Dismissed. The room erupted into motion. Soldiers surged toward the door, checking data pads and tablets for their assignments. Kira waited until the crush thinned, then made her way to the display board. 4th Platoon. Mixed species. Forward reconnaissance. She scanned the roster. 30 soldiers, 3 humans, including herself. Chen? She turned. A Chromath stood behind her, massive, armored, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. His rank insignia marked him as a corporal. I'm Grivik, he said. We're 4th Platoon's 2nd squad leader. You're assigned to my squad. Yes, Corporal. He looked her over. Not hostile, just, assessing. The way you'd assess a new piece of equipment that had questionable reviews. You've seen combat? Not against the Corthax, Kira said. I did 2 years in Earth's colonial defense. Pirate suppression, mostly. Pirates. Grivik's mandibles clicked. Not the same as the swarm. No, Corporal. The swarm doesn't think, doesn't fear, doesn't stop. You understand? Yes, Corporal. He studied her a moment longer. Report to the armory at 1400 hours. We'll fit you for combat gear and run a systems check. Don't be late. Understood. Grivik turned and lumbered away, his bulk parting the crowd like a stone through water. Kira exhaled. First conversation with her squad leader. Survived. Low bar. But she'd take it. Hey. She turned. One of the other humans from 4th Platoon stood beside her. female, mid-20s, with sharp eyes and the kind of compact build that came from a lifetime of competitive athleticism. "I'm Hayes," the woman said. "Also second squad. Looks like we're stuck together." "Chen." Hayes grinned. "You see the look on Grivik's face? That's the I got assigned humans again look. He's not thrilled. Nobody ever is." "Yeah, well." Hayes shrugged. "They'll figure it out. Or they won't. Either way, we've got work to do." The armory smelled like gun oil and ozone. Kira stood in line with 15 other soldiers, waiting for her turn at the equipment station. Ahead of her, a Valorian was being fitted with powered armor that looked like it cost more than her entire education. When her turn came, the armorer, a short, stocky Grendic with 6 fingers and a permanent scowl, looked her up and down. "Human," he grunted. "Standard load or custom?" "Standard's fine." He pulled a crate from the wall and started laying out equipment. Combat armor, lighter than what the Valorians got. A rifle that looked almost comically oversized in human hands. Grenades, medical kit, ammunition, ration packs. "Armor's rated for light plasma," the Grendak said. "Won't stop a direct hit from Korthak's bioweapons, but it'll keep you alive through shrapnel and glancing strikes. Rifle's semi-automatic, 40-round magazine. Effective range 800 meters. You know how to shoot? Yes? Good, because I'm not teaching you." He shoved the crate toward her. "Sign here." Kira signed the datapad and hauled the crate to a nearby bench. Around her, other soldiers were suiting up, running diagnostics, checking weapons. The Chromath moved with casual efficiency, their 4 arms making the process look like choreography. The Valorians tested their armor's servos, joints hissing with hydraulic pressure. Hayes appeared beside her, already half-suited. "You good?" "Yeah." Kira pulled the armor from the crate. It was segmented, designed to flex with human joints. Standard issue, nothing fancy. She stripped to her underlayer and started fitting the pieces. Chest plate, back plate, shoulder guards, arm sections, leg sections. Each piece locked into place with magnetic seals and pressure clamps. The HUD flickered to life inside her helmet. Diagnostics ran green across her vision. Power levels, ammunition count, environmental sensors, comm status. "Not bad," Hayes said. She was fully suited now, rifle slung across her back. You suit up fast for a rookie." "Practice?" "Where'd you serve before this?" "Mars Colony Defense, you?" "Lunar Garrison, 2 years of guarding empty warehouses and filing reports." Hayes checked her rifle's charge. "I wanted real action. Guess I got my wish." Kira secured her helmet and stood. The armor added maybe 20 pounds, but the exoskeleton compensated, distributing the weight across her frame. She felt capable, which was probably the point. "Second squad, form up!" Grivik's voice boomed across the armory. Kira grabbed her rifle and moved. Second squad consisted of 12 soldiers. 3 humans, Kira, Hayes, and a quiet guy named Park, who looked about 19 and terrified. 4 Chromath, including Grivik. 2 Valorians who radiated competence and disdain in equal measure. 2 Vax, silent and watchful. 1 Grendak engineer. They stood in a loose formation, while Grivik walked the line. "We deploy in 10 hours, he said. "Our objective is forward reconnaissance in Sector 9-7. We go in ahead of the main force, establish a perimeter, and gather intel on swarm positions. It's dangerous work. The Korthaks will be thick, and will be operating without heavy support." He stopped in front of the 3 humans. "I've worked with your species before. You're fragile, you're slow, you don't regenerate, and you panic under pressure." Kira kept her eyes forward. Beside her, Hayes stiffened. Park looked like he might throw up. "But," Grivik continued, "you're also stubborn, and you don't quit. So here's the deal. Stay close, follow orders, and don't do anything stupid. If you can manage that, you might survive." He stepped back. "We run drills for the next 6 hours. I combat formations, extraction protocols, emergency medical. If you're weak, I need to know now. If you're incompetent, I need to know now. Better to fail in training than in the field. Understood? Yes, Corporal. The squad answered in unison. Good, let's move. The drills were brutal. Grivik ran them through scenarios with the relentless efficiency of someone who'd seen too many soldiers die from mistakes that could have been prevented. They practiced room clearing, moving through hostile terrain, responding to ambushes, treating casualties under fire. Kira's lungs burned. Her legs ached. The armor, for all its assistance, still weighed on her like a second skin made of concrete. But she kept up. Hayes matched her, step for step, breath for breath. Park struggled, but didn't quit. The Chromath moved like they'd been born in armor, and the Valorians flowed through the exercises with predatory grace. After 4 hours, Grivik called a break. Kira collapsed against a wall, gulping water from her canteen. Across the training bay, the Valorians weren't even breathing hard. They're showing off, Hayes said. She sat beside Kira, her face flushed and damp. Valorians always show off. Can't blame them. Sure I can. Hayes took a drink. Just because they're faster doesn't mean they're better. Doesn't it, though? Hayes grinned. Wait and see. Grivik approached. You three, human soldiers. How are you holding up? Fine, Corporal, Kira said. Truthfully, tired, but functional. He nodded slowly. The Korthax won't give you breaks. They don't sleep. They don't stop. When we're deployed, you'll be running on adrenaline and stimulants. If you're already exhausted, and you're a liability. We'll manage, Hayes said. Grivik's mandibles clicked, his version of a skeptical snort. We'll see. Get back in formation. 2 more hours, then you're dismissed to prep your gear. By the time Grivik finally dismissed them, Kira could barely stand. She stumbled back to Barracks 7, peeled off her armor, and collapsed onto her bunk. Every muscle screamed. Her head pounded. She needed food, water, sleep, probably in that order. Morales appeared with a ration pack and a water bottle. First day with the squad? Yeah, it gets easier. He tossed her the ration pack. Not better, just easier. Your body adapts. Kira tore open the pack. Protein paste, nutrient bar, some kind of vegetable matter that had been freeze-dried into oblivion. She ate mechanically, too tired to care about taste. How'd it go? Morales asked. Grivik thinks we're liabilities. He's not wrong. Thanks. Just being honest. Morales sat on his own bunk. Humans are liabilities in most squad compositions. We're weaker, slower, more fragile. But we're also adaptable. We learn fast, and we don't quit. Grivik's seen enough combat to know that matters. Kira finished the ration pack and drained the water bottle. How many deployments have you done? Against the Korthax? This'll be my 4th. What's it like? Morales was quiet for a long time. You ever see a swarm of locusts strip a field? No. It's like that. But the locusts are 8 feet tall, covered in bioarmor, and they don't stop coming. You shoot one, 3 more take its place. You kill 100, 1,000 appear. The only way to survive is to keep moving, keep fighting, and hope you're extracted before they overwhelm your position. Sounds fun. It's not. Morales lay back. But it's the job, and somebody's got to do it. Kira closed her eyes. In 10 hours, she'd be on a transport headed for Sector 9. In 12 hours, she'd be facing the Korthax swarm for the first time. She thought about the Valorians and their predatory grace, the Chromath and their casual strength, the Vax and their cold efficiency. All of them thought humans didn't belong here. Maybe they were right. Or maybe they just didn't understand what humans brought to the fight. She'd know soon enough. The deployment bay was controlled chaos. Kira stood with 2nd Squad, watching as transports were loaded with equipment, ammunition, medical supplies. Soldiers from a dozen species moved through the organized madness, checking gear. They're exchanging last words with those staying behind. 4th Platoon assembled near Transport 7. Kira counted heads, 30 soldiers, give or take. The humans clustered together, a small island in a sea of larger, deadlier-looking aliens. Lieutenant Korvax addressed them. He was Vax, lean and professional. Listen up. Our objective is Outpost Meridian on the second colony world. The Korthax hit the first world hard. We expect similar force composition on the second. Our job is to establish a reconnaissance perimeter and report swarm movements to the fleet. He gestured to the tactical display. We'll be operating in teams of 3 squads. Second squad, that's you, Grivik, will take the eastern approach. First and third will cover north and south. We set up, we observe, we report. No heroics, no unnecessary engagements. This is intelligence gathering, not a firefight. Grivik's mandibles clicked. And if the swarm engages us, then you fight and extract, in that order. Korvax's eyes swept the platoon. The civilians are evacuating as we speak. Our job is to buy them time. Every minute we hold the perimeter is one more transport that makes it off-world. Remember that when things get difficult. The platoon boarded the transport. Kira strapped into a crash seat between Hayes and Park. The interior was cramped, designed for species larger than human. Her feet barely touched the deck. The engines roared to life. The transport lifted, banking hard as it left the station. Through the viewport, Kira watched the stars wheel past. Somewhere out there, the Korthax swarm was consuming worlds, and she was flying straight toward them. Hayes nudged her. You scared? Terrified? Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Hayes checked her rifle one more time. Just remember, when the shooting starts, stay low, move fast, and don't hesitate. The Korthax don't give second chances. I'll keep that in mind. The transport shuddered as it entered FTL. The stars stretched into lines, then vanished into the grey void of faster-than-light travel. Kira closed her eyes and tried to steady her breathing. 10 hours ago, she'd been a rookie. Fresh meat. Now she was a soldier heading into combat against an enemy that didn't think, didn't fear, didn't stop. She thought about Grivik's words. Fragile, slow, panic under pressure. Maybe, but also stubborn. And stubbornness, she was learning, counted for something in this war. The transport hurtled through the void. And Kira Chen prepared to show the galaxy exactly what a fragile, slow, panicky human could do when the shooting started. The colony world was burning. Kira saw the smoke columns from orbit, black pillars rising through the atmosphere like funeral pyres. Transport 7 banked hard, dropping through the cloud layer, and the full scope of the devastation became clear. Cities, farms, infrastructure, all consumed. The Korthax swarm left nothing behind but ash and the twisted remains of what used to be civilization. 2 minutes to LZ, the pilot's voice crackled through the comm. Prepare for combat drop. Second squad unstrapped and formed up near the drop bay. Grivik moved down the line, checking weapons and armor seals with the methodical focus of someone who'd done this too many times. He stopped in front of Kira. You ready, Chen? Yes? Neg Corporal. His eyes, all 4 of them, studied her. Stay close to Hayes. She's been downside before. Let her take point when we move. Understood? Understood. The transport shook. Outside, anti-aircraft fire bloomed in ugly orange flowers. The Korthax had established air defense. Fast work for a species that supposedly didn't think. 30 seconds. Kira's hands tightened on her rifle. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The armor's med suite registered her elevated pulse and dumped a small dose of stabilizers into her bloodstream. The world sharpened. Her breathing steadied. Chemistry. Helpful. The drop bay doors opened. Wind screamed into the cabin. Below, the LZ was a cleared space on the outskirts of what used to be a city. Structures burned in the distance. Smoke obscured half the terrain. Go! 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 Second squad dropped. The Kira hit the ground and rolled, muscle memory taking over. The impact drove the air from her lungs, but the armor absorbed most of the shock. She came up in a crouch, rifle raised, scanning for targets. The others landed around her. Chromath hit like meteors. Valorians touched down in predatory crouches. The Vax landed silent as ghosts. Perimeter! Grivik barked. 360 coverage? The squad spread out, establishing a defensive circle. Kira took position between Hayes and one of the Valorians, a female named Asira who moved like liquid violence. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the ground started to move. Not metaphorically. The actual dirt began to shift and crack, bulging upward like something massive was pushing from below. "Contact!" one of the Vax hissed. "Subterranean approach!" The ground exploded. The Korthax emerged from the earth. Massive insectoid shapes covered in chitinous armor, mandibles clicking, multiple limbs ending in bone blade appendages. They moved with the coordination of a hive mind, flowing toward the squad like a living tide. "Fire! Fire!" Grivik roared. The world dissolved into noise and motion. Kira's rifle kicked against her shoulder. She fired in controlled bursts, aiming for the gaps in the creature's armor. Beside her, Hayes was doing the same, her movements economical and precise. The Chromath opened up with heavier weapons, plasma cannons that turned Korthax into superheated ash. The Valorians danced through the melee, their powered armor amplifying already lethal speed into something beautiful and terrible. A Korthax drone broke through the line, heading straight for Kira. She dropped to one knee and fired. The burst caught it in what might have been a face. It staggered, kept coming. She fired again, center mass. The creature's carapace cracked. It died 3 feet from her position. "Chen, left flank!" Hayes' voice cut through the chaos. Kira spun. 2 more drones flanking wide. She adjusted her aim and fired, walking the bursts across their approach vector. One went down. The other kept coming. Hayes took it with a grenade. The explosion ripped the creature apart and sent chunks of chitin spinning through the air. "Clear right!" Ysira called. "Clear left!" A Vax confirmed. The firing died down. Smoke drifted across the LZ. Korthax corpses littered the ground, leaking ichor that smoked when it touched dirt. Kira's hands shook. She forced them steady. First contact. Survived. Grivik moved through the squad, checking casualties. "There's status report. Second fire team intact," one of the Chromath rumbled. "First fire team, minor damage to Vex's armor. Still functional," Ysira reported. "Third fire team green," Hayes said. Grivik's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. "Good. That was a probe. They were testing our response. The real assault will be worse." He gestured toward the ruins. We moved to the observation point, standard formation. Humans in the middle. Chromath on point. Valorians on rear guard. Move out. The city was a graveyard. Second squad moved through streets choked with debris and the remains of whoever hadn't made it to the evacuation transports. Kira tried not to look at the bodies. Failed. You always looked. The brain needed to catalogue the dead, needed to file them away as warnings. This could be you. This will be you. This is what happens when you're slow. Hayes moved beside her, rifle up, scanning rooftops and windows. "You did good back there. I shot things. You shot the right things, at the right time. That's harder than it sounds." Ahead, Grivik raised a fist. The squad halted. "Building ahead," he said quietly. 3 stories. Reinforced structure. Good line of sight to the surrounding area. We'll establish our observation post there." The Vax scouts moved forward, silent as death, and disappeared into the building. 30 seconds later, one of them reappeared in a 3rd-floor window and signaled all clear. The squad filed inside. The interior was gutted, walls collapsed, furniture shredded, scorch marks everywhere. But the structure was intact, and the upper floors offered a commanding view of the surrounding terrain. In Grivik assigned positions. "Ysira, take roof watch. Vex, secure the ground floor. Humans, you're with me on the 2nd floor. We need eyes on the eastern approach." Kira followed Grivik up the stairs. The 2nd floor was marginally better preserved, walls mostly intact, windows that still had glass. She took position at a window overlooking what used to be a central plaza. Hayes set up next to her. Park took the adjacent window, looking pale but functional. "Contact protocols," Grivik said. "You see Korthax movement, you report. You do not engage unless they breach the perimeter. Our job is intelligence, not body count. Clear?" Clear, Corporal. Grivik moved to the back of the room and began setting up communications equipment. Within minutes, he had a direct line to the fleet. 4th Platoon 2nd Squad to Fleet Command. Observation post established. Beginning reconnaissance sweep. The fleet's response was immediate. Copy 2nd Squad. Maintain position and report all swarm activity. Evacuation is 60% complete. You have approximately 4 hours until final extraction window. 4 hours. Kira settled in behind her window and began the waiting. The Korthax came in waves. Not attacking. Just moving. Massive formations of drones and warriors flowing through the ruins like water finding new paths. They moved with purpose, but without urgency, spreading through the city in search patterns that covered every meter of ground. Jesus, Park whispered. There are thousands of them. Tens of thousands, Hayes corrected. She was recording everything, her helmet's visual feed streaming to the fleet. Look at the coordination. They're not just swarming. They're organized. Kira watched through her scope. Hayes was right. The Korthax moved in distinct groups, each with a specific function. Some excavated ruins, pulling apart buildings with their blade limbs. Others patrolled in regular patterns. Still others gathered in clusters, doing something Kira couldn't quite identify. They're building something, she said. Grivik moved to her window. Where? Kira pointed to the plaza. A group of larger Korthax, warriors maybe, or some kind of specialist caste, were assembling structures from organic material. The shapes were irregular, asymmetric, but there was clear intent behind the construction. Nests, Grivik said quietly. They're establishing permanent positions. I thought the swarm was nomadic, Hayes said. They are, usually. Grivik's mandibles clicked rapidly. Agitation. This is new behavior. The fleet needs to see this. He moved back to the comm station and began transmitting the visual data. Kira kept watching. The nest building continued, methodical and efficient. Around the construction site, other Korthax moved in defensive patterns. Something about the whole scene bothered her. She couldn't articulate what. Just a feeling that the pieces didn't quite fit. Incoming, Isira's voice from the roof, urgent but controlled. What have you got? Grivik demanded. Air unit, single craft. Korthax configuration. Kira felt her stomach drop. The Korthax had air units. Of course they did. Why wouldn't they? Can it see us? Grivik asked. Negative. It's running a standard patrol pattern. If we stay quiet, it'll pass. The squad froze. No one moved. No one spoke. Even breathing seemed too loud. Through her window, Kira saw the shadow first. Something massive passing over the plaza, blotting out the weak sunlight. Then the craft itself came into view. It wasn't a vehicle. Not really. More like a flying organism. Wings that pulsed with bioluminescence. A body that writhed with internal motion. Appendages that trailed beneath it like tentacles. The thing was beautiful in a horrible way. Alien biology at its most extreme. It circled once, twice. Then it moved on, disappearing behind the ruined buildings. Clear, Isira reported. The squad exhaled collectively. That was close, Park muttered. That was reconnaissance, Grivik said. They're searching for resistance. We need to stay dark and stay quiet. The waiting continued. 3 hours in, Kira's entire body ached. She'd been in the same position too long. Watching the same plaza, recording the same alien activity. Her eyes burned. Her back cramped. The armor's environmental systems kept her temperature regulated, but couldn't do anything about the psychological weight of being utterly still while thousands of hostile organisms moved below. Hayes shifted beside her. You good? Peachy. Liar. Kira managed a tight smile. I'm functional. That's the spirit. Hayes adjusted her scope. You know what's weird? Everything? Fair. But specifically, the Korthax aren't acting like we were briefed. The intel said they're mindless consumers. Eat, reproduce, move on. But look at them. Kira looked. Hayes was right. The Korthax below weren't behaving like locusts. They were methodical, deliberate, They built structures. They organized into functional units. They communicated in ways that suggested more than simple hive instinct. Maybe the intel was wrong, Kira said. Maybe. Or maybe they're evolving. Hayes's voice went quiet. That's a scary thought. Before Kira could respond, Grivik's comm crackled. Second Squad, Fleet Command. Status update. Observation post secure. Swarm activity is extensive but localized. We're recording significant behavioral variance from previous encounters. Copy. Evacuation is 80% complete. Maintain position for another 60 minutes, then extract to secondary LZ. Transport will be waiting. Understood. Second Squad out. 60 minutes. Kira checked her chrono. 60 minutes, then they could leave this nightmare behind. She was counting down the seconds when Park gasped. Contact. Ground level. A south approach. Kira swung her rifle toward the south window. Through Park's sight line, she saw movement. Not Korthax drones, but something else. Survivors. A group of civilians, maybe 20, moving through the ruins. They were a mix of species, Valorians, a few Grendak, what looked like a Chromath child, all injured, all terrified, and heading straight for a Korthax patrol. Grivik, Hayes said urgently, civilians. They're going to walk right into the swarm. Grivik was already at the window. His 4 eyes tracked the civilians, then the patrol. The math was simple and brutal. 20 civilians, 50 Korthax, no contest. We can't engage, Grivik said. Our orders are reconnaissance only. If we fire, we compromise our position and alert the entire swarm to our presence. They'll die, Park said. They're already dead. We just don't know it yet. Kira watched the civilians stumble through the debris. A Valorian female carried a child. A Grendak male limped, one leg clearly broken. They moved with the desperate hope of people who thought they'd found safety. The Korthax patrol was 30 seconds from contact. We have to do something, Hayes said. We have orders, Grivik snapped, and those orders keep the rest of this squad alive. 20 seconds. Kira's finger rested on her trigger. The civilians were close enough now that she could see their faces, see the fear, see the exhaustion. 10 seconds. Grivik? Hayes started. No. The Korthax patrol rounded a corner. The civilians saw them. For one frozen moment, no one moved. Then the screaming started. The Korthax surged forward. The civilians scattered, running in panic. But they were slow and injured, and there was nowhere to go. A Korthax drone caught the Grendak male, blade limbs slicing through flesh like paper. The Valorian female clutched the child and ran, but 3 drones cut her off, surrounding her in a tightening circle. Kira's vision tunneled. Her breath came short and sharp. Every instinct screamed at her to do something, anything, to stop what was happening. But Grivik was right. Firing meant compromising the mission, meant alerting the swarm, meant potentially killing her entire squad. 20 civilians versus 12 soldiers. The math was brutal, but it was math. She watched the Valorian female fall, watched the child disappear beneath a mass of chitin and blade limbs. The screaming stopped. The Korthax patrol moved on, dragging corpses behind them. The plaza was silent. Kira's hands shook, but she gripped her rifle tighter, trying to force them steady. Beside her, Hayes was breathing hard, her face pale behind her visor. Park was crying, silent tears running down his face. Back to positions, Grivik said. His voice was flat, empty. We've got 40 minutes until extraction. The extraction was clean. Transport 9 dropped into the secondary LZ exactly on schedule, took second squad aboard, and lifted before the Korthax could respond. The return flight to the fleet was quiet. No one spoke. No one met anyone's eyes. Kira sat in her crash seat and stared at nothing. She'd survived her first deployment. 20 civilians hadn't. Simple math. When they docked with the fleet, 4th Platoon filed off the transport and headed directly to debriefing. The room was crowded with soldiers from other squads, with all looking various degrees of exhausted and traumatized. Lieutenant Kovacs stood at the front. Report. Each squad leader gave their assessment. Enemy positions, nest construction, air patrols, casualty estimates. The data flowed like water, filling in the tactical picture of an enemy that was larger, more organized, and more dangerous than Intel had suggested. When Grivik's turn came, he delivered second squad's observations with clinical precision. Then he paused. We observed civilian survivors, he said. Approximately 20 individuals, mixed species. They encountered a Korthax patrol during our observation window. Korvax's expression didn't change. Outcome? Total loss. Did you engage? Negative. Engagement would have compromised our position and mission parameters. Korvax nodded. Correct decision. Proceed? Just like that. Correct decision. 20 lives reduced to a tactical footnote in a mission report. Kira felt something cold settle in her chest. Back in Barracks 7, Kira peeled off her armor in mechanical silence. Her body ached. Her head pounded. She needed sleep, food, something to make the last 6 hours feel less real. Morales found her sitting on her bunk, staring at her hands. First deployment's always rough, he said. Kira didn't respond. You want to talk about it? No? Fair enough. He sat down across from her. For what it's worth, it doesn't get easier. You just get better at carrying it. Is that supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be honest. Kira finally looked at him. We watched civilians die. We could have saved them, and we just, watched. I know. That's it? Well, you know? Morales met her eyes. What do you want me to say? That Grivik was wrong? He wasn't. Engaging would have killed all of you and accomplished nothing. That you should feel good about the decision? You shouldn't. That it matters? It does. But not in the way you think. Then how? Because you're still here, still alive, still able to fight tomorrow. He leaned forward. The Korthax don't take days off. They don't negotiate. Every civilian we evacuate, every position we hold, every bit of intel we gather, it all matters. But it only matters if we survive to use it. So we let people die to save ourselves. We make hard calls to save more people later. That's the job. Morales stood. Get some sleep. Second deployment's in 16 hours. You'll need your strength. He left. Takira sat in the quiet barracks and tried to process what she'd learned today. The Korthax were worse than briefed. Smarter, more organized, more dangerous. Her squad thought humans were liabilities. Fragile, slow, unable to make hard calls. And 20 civilians were dead because following orders was more important than doing what felt right. She thought about the Valorian female holding the child, thought about the Grendark male trying to run on a broken leg, thought about the screaming. Then she thought about what Morales said. Hard calls, surviving to fight tomorrow, saving more people later. The math was brutal, but maybe there was a different equation. Maybe there was a way to survive and save people. A way to follow orders and still do what was right. A way to be fragile and slow and still make a difference. She just had to figure out what it was. Kira lay back on her bunk and closed her eyes. 16 hours until the next deployment. 16 hours to become someone the galaxy couldn't ignore. The second deployment went bad from the start. Transport 9 dropped 4th Platoon into what was supposed to be a secured LZ on the 3rd colony world. Intel said the Korthax had only light presence in this sector. Intel said evacuation was 90% complete. Intel said the mission would be a simple sweep and extract. Intel was catastrophically wrong. They hit ground and immediately came under fire from 3 directions. Not drones, warriors, the big ones. The kind that could tear through chromath armor like tissue paper. Contact! Contact! Heavy units, all sides. Lieutenant Korvax's voice cracked through the chaos. 4th Platoon. Establish defensive perimeter. 1st Squad, take left flank. 2nd Squad. The transmission cut off. Kira hit the dirt and rolled, coming up behind a collapsed wall. Beside her, Hayes was already firing, her rifle barking in controlled bursts. Park was on her other side, white-faced but functional. The Korthax warriors charged. They were massive, 12 feet of armored horror, moving with speed that shouldn't be possible for something that size. Blade limbs carved through the air, mandibles wide enough to swallow a human whole. Second Squad's weapons opened up. Plasma fire turned the air white-hot. The Chromath heavy gunner laid down suppressing fire that vaporized the first wave of warriors. But they kept coming. "Chen! Grenade! 40 meters! Center mass!" Grivik's voice cut through her helmet comm. Kira grabbed a grenade, armed it, threw. The explosion ripped through a cluster of warriors. Chiton and Icor sprayed across the LZ. 3 went down. 5 more took their place. "We can't hold this position," Ysera shouted. The Valorian was moving like liquid death, her powered armor turning her into something supernatural. But even she was being pushed back by the sheer weight of numbers. "Fleet Command, this is 4th Platoon." Korvax's voice was strained. "LZ is compromised, requesting immediate extraction." Static. Then, negative 4th Platoon. All extraction craft are engaged in final civilian evacuation. No assets available for military retrieval. Hold position and survive. ETA for extraction, 2 hours. 2 hours. Kira reloaded and fired. A warrior went down. Another appeared. She fired again. 2 hours meant they were all dead. Second Squad, "Fall back to Structure Echo," Grivik ordered. "Fighting withdrawal. Move!" The squad began pulling back, laying down covering fire as they retreated toward a partially collapsed building 300 meters from the LZ. The Korthax pursued, relentless and unstoppable. A warrior broke through the line, heading straight for Park. The kid froze. Hayes took the shot, but her angle was wrong. The plasma bolt scored the warrior's armor, but didn't penetrate. Kira moved without thinking. She sprinted across open ground, threw herself into a slide, and came up between Park and the warrior. Her rifle was already up, aimed at the gap where chitin plates met at the creature's throat. She fired. The warrior's head exploded. "Move, Park! Now!" The kid ran. Kira covered his retreat, firing until her magazine ran dry, and then sprinting after him towards Structure Echo. They made it inside with seconds to spare. The Chromath sealed the entrance with debris and welded metal plating. Outside, the Korthax warriors crashed against the barrier like waves against a seawall. "Head count!" Grivik barked. Second Squad was intact. First and Third Squads had lost soldiers. Kira saw empty spaces in the formation, soldiers missing from positions they'd held on the transport. 4th Platoon was down to 21 soldiers from the original 30. Korvax took stock of their situation with the cold efficiency of a professional. "We're inside a building with limited exits and 2 hours until extraction. The Korthax know we're here and they're not leaving." "Suggestions?" Grivik asked. "We fortify this position and hold until the fleet can pull us out." One of the Vax spoke up. "Sir, the structure won't hold against sustained assault. The warriors will tear through these walls in under an hour." Korvax's jaw tightened. "Then we improvise." Kira listened to the discussion and felt that familiar cold calculation settle into her mind. The same calculation that had been running since she watched those civilians die on the first deployment. Math. Cold, brutal math. 21 soldiers. 2 hours. A building that would collapse in 1. The equation didn't balance, unless you changed the variables. "Sir," Kira said. Every head turned. The humans didn't speak up in tactical discussions. That was an unwritten rule. Humans were support. Cannon fodder, not strategists. Korvax stared at her. "Sergeant Chen, you have input?" "Yes, sir. We're thinking about this wrong." "Explain." Kira moved to the tactical display one of the Vax had set up. "The Korthax are siege predators. They surround, they pressure, they wait for us to make mistakes or run out of resources. That's their pattern. Your point? My point is, they're expecting us to defend. They've positioned themselves for a siege. but they're not expecting us to attack. Silence. Then Isira laughed. Not mockery, genuine amusement. You want to assault them? With 21 soldiers against an enemy force of, 200 warriors? Not assault, distract. Kira highlighted a section of the map. There's a medical facility 2 clicks northeast, still intact according to satellite imaging. If there are civilians there, and intel says there might be, the Korthax will want them. They've been consuming biological matter for nest construction. So we give them a reason to leave our position and chase a more valuable target. Grivik's mandibles clicked rapidly. You want to use civilians as bait? No, I want to rescue civilians and use ourselves as bait. Kira traced a route on the display. Small team moves fast and light to the medical facility. Secures any survivors. Makes enough noise to draw the Korthax away from this position. The main force holds here with reduced pressure. Waits for extraction. Korvax studied the map. It's insane. It's math, sir. Right now, we're 21 soldiers in a dying building with 2 hours to live. If we split the force, the small team draws enemy attention, reduces pressure on the main position, and might actually save civilians in the process. Might. You're betting lives on might? I'm betting lives on probability, and the probability of all of us dying here is 100%, unless we change the equation. Hayes was grinning. Park looked terrified. Grivik was unreadable. Korvax was silent for 10 long seconds. Then, how many for the distraction team? 6. Fast movers, humans preferred. Why humans? Because we're small, we're quiet, and nobody expects us to be stupid enough to try this. The Korthax have been conditioned to see humans as defensive. We don't attack, we hide. They won't see us coming until we're already gone. Isira stepped forward. I'm in. Valorian? Kira said. No offense, but you're loud. Your armor signature broadcasts across every sensor in a 2-click radius. Then I leave the armor. That stopped everyone. Valorians didn't leave their armor. The powered suits were extensions of their bodies, force multipliers that turned them into apex predators. Without armor, a Valorian was fast and deadly but vulnerable. Isira's eyes locked on Kira's. You're right that humans are unexpected. But you know what else is unexpected? A Valorian moving at natural speed in hostile terrain. They won't know what to track. Kira nodded slowly. Okay, you're in. Who else? Hayes raised her hand. Obviously. Park looked like he wanted to vomit, but also raised his hand. I'm in. One of the Vax, Shen, stepped forward. Silent movement is our specialty. Good. That's 5. One more. Grivik's 4 eyes fixed on her. This is suicide. No, Corporal, it's math. Math that ends with you dead. Maybe, but math that keeps the rest of 4th Platoon alive. Kira met his gaze. Oh, I've been watching civilians die since I got here. Following orders, making the hard calls. I'm done watching. This is how we save lives and complete the mission. Grivik was quiet for a long moment. Then his mandibles clicked once, decisively. I'm going with you. Corporal, you'll need heavy support if things go wrong, and things will go wrong. He turned to Korvax. Sir, permission to accompany the distraction team. Korvax looked at the map, at the soldiers, at the impossible situation they were in. Granted, 6-person team. Chen has tactical lead. Retrieve any civilians you find and draw the swarm away from our position. If you're not back in 90 minutes, we extract without you. Understood, sir? They moved through the ruins like ghosts. Kira took point, her smaller frame letting her slip through gaps that would have stopped larger species. Behind her, Hayes and Park moved with the careful precision of soldiers who knew one wrong step meant death. Shen flowed through the shadows, barely visible even to enhanced sensors. Isira moved without her armor, trading protection for speed, her natural Valorian agility making her faster than anything the Korthax expected. Grivik brought up the rear, 4 arms holding 4 weapons, ready to lay down suppressing fire if they were compromised. The city was a labyrinth of collapsed buildings and smoking craters. Kira navigated by dead reckoning and tactical instinct, choosing paths that kept them below sensor lines and away from Korthak's patrol routes. 20 minutes in, they encountered their first obstacle. A Korthak's patrol. 8 warriors. It directly in their path. Kira raised a fist. The team froze. She studied the patrol's movement pattern. Regular, predictable. They were sweeping a grid, checking each structure methodically. Professional, organized. But predictable meant vulnerable. She signaled, "Wait, let them pass." The team melted into cover. Kira pressed herself against a wall, breathing shallow, watching the warriors move past their position. One came within 10 feet. She could see the texture of its chitin, hear the click of its mandibles, smell the sharp chemical scent of its biology. It passed. The patrol moved on. Kira waited 30 seconds, then signaled, "Move." They continued. 15 minutes later, they reached the medical facility. The building was partially collapsed, but still standing. Kira approached carefully, scanning for signs of life or Korthak's presence. The entrance was blocked by debris, but a side access point was clear. She signaled the team. "Shen, check perimeter. Isira, cover the approach. Grivik, with me." They entered the facility in tactical formation. The interior was dark, lit only by emergency lighting that flickered at random intervals. Medical equipment lay scattered across the floor. Supply cabinets hung open, already looted. "Fleet said there might be civilians here," Hayes whispered. "Intel's been wrong about everything else," Kira said. "Why should this be different?" They cleared the first floor. Empty. Second floor. Same. Kira was starting to think this was a waste of time when she heard it. Crying, quiet, muffled, coming from below. "Basement," she said. They found the access stairs behind a locked door. Grivik forced it open with one of his arms. The stairs descended into darkness. Kira activated her helmet light and went down. The basement was a storage area converted into an emergency shelter, and it was full of people. 40 civilians, maybe more. Mix of species, injured, terrified. Huddled together in the darkness like refugees from a nightmare. A Valorian male stepped forward, weapon raised, some kind of improvised club. "Stay back!" Kira raised her hands, rifle pointed at the ceiling. "Easy. We're GDC. 4th Platoon. We're here to get you out." The Valorian's weapon lowered slightly. "The swarm. They're everywhere. We've been hiding for 2 days, waiting for evacuation." "Evacuation's almost complete," Kira said, "but we need to move you now. Can these people walk?" "Most of them. Some are injured. We'll manage. Get them ready to move." 5 minutes," she turned to her team. "Change of plans? We've got 40 civilians. No way we're moving them 2 clicks through hostile territory without being detected." "So what's the plan?" Hayes asked. Kira thought fast. "Math. Always math. 40 civilians, 6 soldiers, 2 clicks to extraction. The numbers didn't work unless we don't move them to extraction. We bring extraction to them." Grivik's mandibles clicked. "Explain." "The Korthaks are focused on our main position. They're expecting us to defend Structure Echo. If we create enough noise here, they'll redirect. But we don't fight them. We lead them away from the civilians, create a route to a secondary LZ, and call in an emergency extraction for the civilians while we draw the swarm off. That leaves us exposed with no backup and no extraction," Park said. Yes. That's suicide." "No, that's the job." Grivik studied her. 4 eyes. All 4 calculating. "You're serious?" "Completely. We came here to save lives. Here's 40 of them. We get them out, we've justified this entire deployment." Hayes was nodding. "I'm in." Park took a shaky breath. "Me too." Shen spoke quietly. "A distraction requires bait. I volunteer." Isira grinned, showing teeth. "Finally. Real combat." Grivik clicked his mandibles. Not agitation this time. Something else. Maybe respect. "All right, Chen, you've got tactical lead. What's the play?" The play was simple and insane. They moved the civilians to a clearing 300 meters from the medical facility, close enough for a fast extraction, far enough to keep them away from the fighting. Kira transmitted the coordinates to Fleet Command with an emergency beacon. Fleet, this is Chen, 4th Platoon 2nd Squad. I have 40 civilians at these coordinates requiring immediate extraction. Priority medical emergency. The response was instant. Chen, your orders are reconnaissance and distraction. You're supposed to be drawing Swarm away from Lieutenant Korvax's position. I am drawing them away. I'm also saving 40 lives. Send a transport. A pause. Then, copy. Transport inbound. ETA 12 minutes. Can you hold? We'll hold. 12 minutes. Kira turned to her team. Grivik, stay with the civilians. Keep them calm. If the Korthax breach the perimeter before extraction, you fight and you don't stop fighting until that transport lifts. Understood. The rest of us are making noise. We hit the Korthax hard, fast, and loud. Draw every warrior in a 2-click radius to our position. Would then extract before they can encircle us. And if they encircle us anyway? Park asked. Then we improvise. They moved into position. Kira chose their ambush point carefully, a choke point where collapsed buildings created a natural kill box. When the Korthax came, they'd funnel through this space. Perfect terrain for a small force to inflict maximum damage. She positioned her team. Hayes on the high ground with a sniper rifle. Park covering the left approach. Shen on the right, invisible in the shadows. Isira mobile, ready to hit targets of opportunity. Kira in the center, coordinating fire. Here we go, she said. Hayes, fire when ready. Hayes's rifle cracked. A Korthax warrior 800 meters away dropped, its head gone. The swarm responded instantly. Warriors poured from every building, every alley, every hole in the ground. They moved toward the ambush point like a living tide, mandibles clicking in rage. Contact, Park yelled. Light them up, Kira ordered. The world exploded into violence. Hayes fired methodically, each shot dropping a warrior. Park laid down suppressing fire with his rifle. Shen moved through the Korthax positions like a ghost, knife work that was surgical and brutal. Isira was a whirlwind, using her natural speed to strike and fade before the warriors could respond. And Kira coordinated it all, calling targets, adjusting positions, keeping the team from being overwhelmed. But there were too many. For every warrior they killed, 3 more appeared. The Korthax were learning, adapting their approach, finding angles of attack that bypassed the kill box. Chen, they're flanking, Hayes called. Kira saw it. A group of warriors moving wide, trying to circle behind their position. Isira, left flank, 20 meters! The Valorian spun and engaged, her claws tearing through chitin armor. But she was 1 soldier against 10 warriors. Park, support Isira! Park moved, firing as he ran. A warrior caught him with a blade limb. His armor absorbed most of the impact, but he went down hard. Park's hit, Hayes yelled. Kira's mind raced. Park down. Warriors flanking. 12 warriors. No, 15. 20. Too many. The equation was tipping. They were about to be overwhelmed. And then she heard it. The sound of transport engines. Extraction is on site, Grivik's voice through the comm. Civilians are loading. Copy. How long? 3 minutes? 3 minutes. They needed 3 minutes. Kira made a decision. Fall back, fighting withdrawal to the civilians' position. Move! The team disengaged, laying down covering fire as they retreated. The Korthax pursued, relentless and unstoppable, but the withdrawal was controlled. Disciplined. They reached the clearing just as the last civilian was loading onto the transport. Grivik stood at the ramp, 4 weapons blazing, holding the line by himself. Get on the transport, Kira yelled. Not without you. We're right behind you. Hayes grabbed Park and hauled him onto the transport. Shen followed. Isira covered their retreat, then jumped aboard. Kira was the last one standing. The Korthax were 50 meters away. 40. 30. She fired her last magazine, then turned and sprinted for the transport. 20 meters. Grivik's arms grabbed her and pulled her aboard. The ramp closed. The transport lifted. Through the viewport, Kira watched the Korthax swarm the clearing, their mandibles clicking in frustration at prey that had escaped. Then they were gone, climbing toward orbit and safety. The debriefing was intense. Kira stood at attention while Commander Thex reviewed her tactical report. Beside her, the rest of the distraction team waited. "Sergeant Chen," Thex said, "you deviated from your mission parameters." "Yes, sir." "You risked your team and potentially compromised 4th Platoon's defensive position." "Yes, sir." "And you extracted 40 civilians who would have died if you'd followed orders." Kira met his eyes. "Yes, sir." Thex was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Grivik. "Corporal, assessment?" Grivik's mandibles clicked. "Sir, Sergeant Chen demonstrated exceptional tactical acumen, leadership under fire, and creative problem-solving in a crisis situation. Her actions saved 40 civilian lives and drew the Korthax away from Lieutenant Korvax's position, allowing his force to hold until extraction. I recommend her for commendation." "Noted." Thex turned to Isira. "You left your armor. Explain." "Sir, the mission required speed and stealth. My armor would have compromised both. Sergeant Chen's tactical assessment was sound." "And you followed a human sergeant's orders?" "I followed good orders, sir. The species giving them was irrelevant." Thex's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Dismissed, all of you." They filed out. In the corridor, Grivik stopped Kira. "That was good work. Thank you, Corporal." "Don't thank me. Thank whatever made you stubborn enough to ignore conventional wisdom." His mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Humans, always doing the unexpected. He walked away. Isira fell into step beside Kira. "You know what they're calling you?" "No." "The calculation that doesn't add up. The variable that breaks the equation." She smiled. "It's a compliment, mostly. I'll take it." Hayes appeared, grinning. "We pulled it off. 40 civilians, 0 friendly casualties. Best deployment I've ever been on." "Let's not make a habit of it," Kira said. "Why not? Seems like it's working." They walked together through the corridors of the fleet carrier. Around them, other soldiers moved through their routines. But something was different now. They were looking at Kira, not ignoring. Looking. You humans didn't belong in the Galactic Defense Corps, they'd said. Too fragile, too slow, too unpredictable. They were right about unpredictable. Kira smiled. She'd been in the GDC for exactly 1 week. In that time, she'd learned that the galaxy thought humans were weak, that following orders sometimes meant letting people die, and that conventional tactics only worked if everyone followed the same rules. But humans didn't follow the rules. Humans changed the equation. And Sergeant Kira Chen had just taught the galaxy a lesson it wouldn't forget. Underestimate humanity at your peril. The Korthax swarm learned it first. The rest of the galaxy would learn it soon enough. 6 months later, the Korthax swarm attempted a major offensive against GDC positions. And they were met by a new tactical doctrine developed by Sergeant Chen and her team. Small, fast human units operating behind enemy lines, rescuing civilians, disrupting swarm logistics, and turning the Korthax's own predictability against them. The doctrine became known as Chen's equation, and it changed the war. Humans were no longer fragile liabilities. They were force multipliers. They were the variable the enemy couldn't account for. And every species in the GDC learned what the Korthax learned too late. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't size or speed or armor. It was the refusal to accept impossible odds as an answer. The female recruit who was ignored became the template for a new kind of soldier. And the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again.